at 21, I was in Maidstone Hospital. My parents had to sign a do not resuscitate form. I was 5.5 stone. Because of my sporting background and football as a kid, getting into the gym was the thing that saved my life. If you're going to make a change now.
You come across as a guy that's like, he's got his shit together. But obviously that's not really how your story kind of starts.
It sounds weird saying it, but the anorexia wasn't the worst thing. It was the bulimia. Therapy didn't work for me. One of the therapists said, it's a bit odd for a guy to have an eating disorder. I've never known a guy to have it. I think I gave up. It was like, it could have been me. So I'm almost like, I'm here. I was able to recover for a reason. Like, it's not that I wanted to die, but
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Success School podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and taking time to listen to the show today. And I also just want to make sure you are aware that my whole mission with this podcast is to be able to give people access to conversations that are going to enlighten, they're going to inspire, and they're going to give you the information needed to genuinely start to live a happier, a healthier, and a more fulfilling life. But here's the thing, I am just one man. So that's really, really hard to get a lot of people to be positively impacted when I'm doing this alone. So I'm just going to ask a little favor. And I know you're probably sick of hearing this. You probably hear it on every podcast you listen to. But please, if you genuinely do think this podcast is valuable and can help people, if you could just take a second to hit that subscribe button and maybe go one further, tell other people about it, share it on your Insta stories, anything you can do to help bring more awareness to the show would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for being here, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome, James, to the Success School podcast. Seeing you today, the guy that I've seen on social media, it's kind of almost unbelievable to know that your story is yours, because you come across as a guy that's like, he's got his shit together, he's helping other people. But obviously that's not really how your story kind of starts. And I wondered if you could just talk to us about that kind of 10-year journey you had when it comes to, I believe it was from being 17 to around 27. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And you had not just one eating disorder, right? You had numerous. Do you want to just talk to us about what that journey was? And importantly, what were the triggers? How did that start?
Okay. Yes, obviously, like my upbringing was very, very privileged. My parents gave me anything I wanted. I was pretty much the stereotypical view of a posh boy. Probably went to private school and had a really perfect childhood. Never really had any life trauma. I think that's probably why things hit me so hard when it did. From the age of 7, I got signed by Charlton Athletic to play football as a goalkeeper, and that took up 10 years of my life. So from 7 to 17, it was mapped out to me that I was going to be a footballer. So like 4 days a week traveling from when I lived in Kent to London. It's like 100-mile round trip, a lot of time, a lot of investment from my parents taking me there. And at the end of every year I was signed on, and I was the captain of the team, and got to 16, 17, and obviously then there's the proper professional contract signed, and it's like, oh, this is exciting. And I didn't really think much of it because I'd passed every test up until then, and when you're constantly reinforced that you're told that you're good and you're special and you're going to make it, you kind of start to believe it. Fast forward to signing on day, or what he thought was signing on day. James, you're not good enough. We're not signing you. Thank you for your time. Off you pop. No aftercare, no real reason why. Obviously I later found out it was because of my height. I'm 6'4" now, but I didn't start growing until I was 18. That's kind of a bit of probably another thing that hit me a little bit later on. So it was like 10 years of my life of routine, especially as a kid. Like my childhood was really good, but my childhood was very regimented and very disciplined. But I loved it because that's what I was going to do. And then it was like back to school, back to normal life. So I was doing my first year of A-levels, cocked up my business studies exam, and my dad owns his own business. My brother did business studies at uni, and it was kind of drummed into me that I didn't know what to do, but I'll do business studies because the two role models in my life do it. school wouldn't let me carry on, and if I wanted to do business studies, I had to leave and go to college. So I had to leave school. So all my friends that I knew from the age of 11, leaving them. So that was another big upheaval. And then when I started college in the September, my nan, who lived in London, sold a house to come and live with us. We had an extension built on the side of our house. In the December, she started complaining about a pain in the stomach. Got through Christmas, took her to the doctors in January. Doctors sent her to hospital. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she said to my mum that she was ready to go. She'd lost her. Obviously, I lost my granddad when I was 11, so for 6 years of being on her own, and she just said she wanted to be with her husband again. So she gave up. She didn't fight it. So she was diagnosed in January, middle of January. She passed away beginning of March. And because I was at college, it was only part time, so I was there. It was in front of me daily. The rapid decrease in her health, and I think it was a combination of all them three things, and just this feeling of being so out of control. I couldn't control what was going on in my life. I wasn't good enough for football. I wasn't good enough for school. I wasn't good enough for my friends. I wasn't good enough to save my nan. And it was kind of this taboo subject because my mum was still really affected by it. You couldn't really talk about it because it upset my mum. So I internalized everything, and it manifested itself into, initially it was excessive exercise. I just started running everywhere, and obviously in hindsight I was trying to run away from my problems. Essentially, I didn't understand it, what I was doing, and obviously I ended up, unbeknownst to me, having anorexia. It started out with just the excessive exercise, and then it was the running a little bit more, eating a little bit less, to the point where I was eating like one tiny meal a day but running for 4 hours a day. And obviously the routine that I was in as a kid, and I do have an obsessive personality. That's probably a common theme. Because no one challenged me on it, of what I was doing, I just carried on doing it. And obviously I got competitive. It's like, oh, how much can I run, or how much can I exercise? How little can I eat? And then obviously my parents noticed after about a year and didn't really know how to bring it up. So they let me carry on for 6 months. And then obviously I started getting really ill, and it started impacting my studies, and it started impacting me socially, where I just wouldn't reply to my friends. I wouldn't go out. I'd shut myself away. And they forced me to go to the doctors. My parents obviously told the doctors obviously what had happened in the last year, and obviously the weight loss and the change in my personality. And it was like, I think you got anorexia. And it was like, what's that? What's that? Like, it's like, it's an eating disorder. It's like, I haven't got an eating disorder.
So
like,
just to be clear then, it wasn't like you even knew what anorexia was. It's not like you'd seen or heard of anybody else with anorexia, right?
No one in my family had it. Obviously, no one in my social circle had it. It wasn't something that was on TV. You know, obviously how like soaps these days will always challenge with a topical thing. There was nothing. There was no one in the mainstream that had it. I somehow, my routine caused me to do it unbeknownst to me, which is a bit of an anomaly, I guess. Like, I never set out to do it. I never set out to have anorexia.
What do you think was driving you? I know you said there, like, you had obviously a lot of trauma, like, and a lot of rejection happen one after the other. But when you reflect now, what was driving you to do that every day, other than it became routine? Was there something?
I think that obviously, barring the rejection, I think the biggest thing in my head was disappointment. Like, my dad spent so much time. My dad was a goalkeeper, and obviously he invested so much time in me, training me, getting me to a level, and then obviously when it's drummed into you that you're going to be a professional footballer, even like back then, you thought like, I'm going to be able to sort everybody out. Like, I can sort my parents won't have to work. I can buy them their house, and I can have them set for life. And it's like, because I passed every test, and it was like the last test was to sign a professional contract, and then after that it was like, not that you focus on the money, but obviously it's a big thing that gets spoken about, especially in academies. And I think it was just that disappointment. Like, I didn't do what was intended for me. And like, this 10-year plan literally was, in my head at the time, it was like a big waste of time, because I had nothing to show for it.
And you felt like presumably like you'd failed, like you'd let your parents down, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and obviously looking at it now, I would obviously, it was something that carried on. It was just that self-sabotage cycle of self-destruction. Like I was punishing myself because of the mindset that I was in. That's the most important thing. Looking at it now, and if you could almost take yourself out of the headspace you was in, you'd be like, mate, don't worry about it. Like, it's shit happens. Like, you're not a failure. You just weren't picked. It's a very selective pool of people that get picked to be the less than 1%. But you don't think about that when you're a kid, and when it's mapped out for you and it doesn't go that way, you are so disappointed in yourself, and you just feel like you've let everybody down. And then the thing with school, like in hindsight, I didn't have to leave. I chose to leave. So again, it was my decision. When you're looking back, it was my decision. And then the situation with my nan, if the doctors have sent her home and she was on palliative care and there was Macmillan nurses coming in to keep her comfortable, what could I do? Nothing. But that's not how, obviously, because it's like they say that bad things happen in threes. If one thing happened at one time, you can probably break it down, analyze it, deal with it. But when it was like three big things to me, it may not be big things to everyone, but it's three big things to me, and it was like I didn't know how to cope. Which one do I deal with first? Because I hadn't dealt with the football thing. I'd like shoveled that away. The school thing, again, probably buried that away. And then my nan, that just erupted everything. And it was just like I was just drowning in, probably in self-pity. I was like the victim mentality, like, why me? Why is this all happening to me? And it was just it was the mentality of how I took all these traumas. And like I said, it just manifested itself in a way that I didn't actually know what I was doing.
I'm listening to you there, and I'm not even sure that I know the answer to this, but there's some common themes that I'm hearing from you that I've heard with other people. And I'm also like reflecting on in my own life, in that you felt quite privileged. Like when you was younger, you presumably were quite encouraged to be ambitious, to work hard, and to have this great football career. And I think like there's obviously a lot of people on and that listen to this that are parents themselves. And, you know, we never can be perfect as human beings, let alone parents. And it must be, I assume, one of the hardest jobs in the world. But you would think encouraging young James to work hard, go after his dreams, supporting him that you can be anything you could be, would not lead to a 10-year eating disorder. And I'm not saying it was just that, right? But it played an integral role.
Yeah.
So as you reflect now, and I'm sure you've reflected a lot, like, what could people have done differently for you as you were a kid, like when it comes to supporting your goals, so that, you might have still been ambitious, but maybe you were more prepared for the realities, the rejection?
I think that it's not even about what other people did. It's what I did. I didn't talk. I didn't communicate. I didn't tell my parents how I felt. I made up their view in my head. I never spoke to them and like, how do you feel about the football situation finishing? Like the school thing, they didn't care about. Like they wasn't involved in that. My dad has said to me from as early as I can remember, obviously, and my mum, but my dad specifically was like, I don't care what you do in life, as long as you're happy, as long as you're healthy. And that's been drummed into me, but I just left that. I parked that saying, and because if you don't communicate, you don't know how the other person feels. So, and if you carry on thinking about it, you think of the worst case scenario that they think, and that becomes gospel.
Why do you think you didn't communicate?
I'll class it as the trauma, but I think the setbacks of being told that you weren't good, and then I wasn't good enough to stay at school, and I think it was just the constant kicks I was having, seemingly the constant setbacks. I think I gave up.
Yeah. I
think it was just like I just felt like I wasn't good enough. So it's like, why? Like I'd almost answered the question that I should have asked my parents, and because of the mindset I was in, it was like they're disappointed. Like,
so then there's like shame, right? It's kind of like
it was, and I think that's why, obviously, when working with a sports psychologist after to try and deep dive into my psyche, that's why I was running. Like I'd never run before, like barring obviously training and that. I was never a runner. Like I was, and it was just it was like without making it sound so fucking obvious, it was like I was running away from the crap in my head, and that was it.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
I think as well, that's just highlighted a point that I want to just say now to everybody listening. Like, this is why I believe it's so important to attach your identity to more than just a career or a job, especially like there's a lot of people that are actors and athletes and so on that are interested in this. You know, we hear it all the time. Athletes, they get an injury, they can no longer play. Then they go, who am I now? With actors, there's a lot of you on here now that are constantly putting your self-worth, your self-confidence on, when I get that big break, then I'll be successful. And in the meantime, like that big break, whatever you define as a big break, might not come for 30 years. And it's like, if you don't have something else, like, who are you? And how can you feel truly happy, fulfilled, and successful without needing that job role? I think that's a really important thing just to make a note on tonight, listening to James talk. James, for you, fast forward now to kind of, you know, you're fully blown now anorexic. What would be, in your memory today, some of the worst that it got? How bad did it get?
Well, it sounds weird saying it, but the anorexia wasn't the worst thing. It was the bulimia. So essentially what I did, the running and the limitation of my food, I did that for 18 months. And then I basically rebelled against being hungry all the time. And again, never even researched it. I think I gave up I felt like I lost the battle of being hungry all the time. And I just started to binge on food. And I remember I can still remember the first time I did it. My parents were up in London seeing my nan, my dad's mum. So I had like 5 or 6 hours on my own, and I remember craving McDonald's. So I went to the local services and I spent like 30 quid on McDonald's. And I remember eating it all, and it was like, there was, again, you mentioned it earlier, the shame. As soon as I eaten all that food, I felt shame of like, what am I doing to myself? Like, you can't eat these foods. And I think the reason why I picked the McDonald's is because I demonized anything that was bad, anything I deemed in my head as bad food, I wouldn't touch. So it was like the moment it was like you tell a kid, don't touch that, well, they want to touch it. Yeah. But if I demonize all these foods, you want them. I can't have them, I want them. And I gave in. I gave in to that urge to eat. And obviously, as soon as I ate it, it was this, I've got to get it out of me. And I remember trying everything to make myself sick. Obviously, I don't want to sound, but obviously, like using my fingers and other instruments and stuff, and then it was like this. Obviously, I was able to do it, and then it was like opening up Pandora's box. It was like, oh, this is new. This is a new thing to do. Instead of the running, instead of the excessive exercise, I can eat the food. I can eat it. I don't need to keep it down. And obviously that's where it moved from anorexia to bulimia, and that's when my health really did deteriorate. To the point where, obviously, when it started, I would have been, the anorexia was probably 18 to nearly 20. But in the space of probably 20 to 21, I had gone at my lowest weight. At 21, I was in Maidstone Hospital. My parents had to sign a do not resuscitate form. I was 5.5 stone. And bearing in mind, obviously, for people that don't know, because I'm sitting down, like I said, I'm 6'4". So 5.5 stone at 6'4". I was on drips. I had like potassium because I was dehydrated. Potassium for my heart, basically like the electrolyte to kickstart your heart. You need the potassium in your body. So if you ever go into cardiac arrest, the potassium is basically like the natural thing in the body to help you kickstart it when you do CPR. Like, my levels were non-existent, to the point where they were just like, if you go into cardiac arrest, and obviously at your height and weight, you are in an extreme a high risk of going into cardiac arrest. If you do, we're not even going to try and revive you. And I remember my parents just like sobbing and crying and like shouting and asking questions as to why, like what surely you'd be able to save him, like he's only young. And I didn't care. Like, it's not that I wanted to die. I was so numb to anything. I had no emotion whatsoever. It was just like, yeah, So I was so, and I think that's what annoyed my dad so much. Like, obviously seeing his youngest son do that, and it was like, do you not care? Do you not care that you're going to die?
Now, most of you that listen to this show every week are also already members of our incredible membership, so you don't need me to tell you how amazing that it is. If you're not a member, I'm not going to list everything that you get because it's completely free to join anyway. So all I would say is click the link in our show notes, head on over, start your membership, and you will find out for yourself. But simply put, the membership is this. It is there to give you the guidance, the support, the accountability, the community, and the information that is there if you actually want to start to become a person who achieves what it is you say you want to achieve. If you want to become that high performance action taker, that person that is a go-getter, that has got the support to start making change in every single area of your life, that's what the membership does. That is what we are there to do. And I can tell you now that if you take action, if you sign up, and if you commit to consistently engaging with the membership, I can almost 100% guarantee you that it will positively impact every single area of your life. But I can't do that for you. You are the missing link. You need to click that link. You need to sign up. You need to join us. And you need to get involved. If you do, the results will come. The question is, will you do it? I don't know, but I really hope so. And if you do, I'll be excited to welcome you into the community. Guys, I've got a question to ask. If you are listening to this podcast right now and you haven't yet purchased a ticket for our live in-person event, what on earth are you doing? You need to stop listening. You need to go purchase your ticket and you need to make your way to Bradford on Saturday, the 6th of January to get yourself in the room. No excuses. I don't care if it's your day of your wedding. Cancel your wedding. You can postpone it. It's not as important as this. If you were at the first event that we did in Manchester, you will know just how powerful it is to get into a room full of people who are like-minded, to engage in the great content, to meet the guest speakers, and to bloody well meet me. Like, what more do you need? All jokes aside, I seriously think out of everything I've ever done, putting on these events is the thing I enjoy the most. I think it is the most powerful and impactful, and it has the potential to genuinely change your life. It has the potential to help you connect with some great people that could become lifelong friends. There's just so many benefits. What I've done is I've put the link to get tickets in the show notes of this episode. So just head over there if you want to get a ticket. There's going to be some great speakers. We're also going to be doing some group breath work. We're going to be doing some group coaching where I'll be there coaching you guys on the day. We'll be talking about some stuff that's genuinely going to get you thinking about what you want out of your life and what you need to be doing to take the steps to make those changes. You're also going to be invited to do some cold water therapy. It's not compulsory. There's just going to be the opportunity if you want to do it. I certainly will be doing it. So if you want to get in an ice bath with me, that will be available to you. We're also going to be having some really healthy, nutritious foods available to eat on the day. It's just going to be such a positive day. The way that I'm sort of marketing it is like a little mini retreat in Bradford. Who knew? Who knew you could do that in winter in Bradford? It's happening, like I say, on the Saturday the 6th. It's going to be in the day, and I would love to see you there. Click the link to get your ticket. Drop me a message. You can either email me at successschoolgroup@gmail.com or DM me on the various social media handles if you've any questions. But do get your tickets fast, because I'm not just saying this is a marketing thing. I am very, very pleased to see they are selling very, very quickly. So don't procrastinate. Take action, and I'll see you there. At that point, you're a few years into it.
Mm-hmm.
Why were you in that mindset of not caring at this point?
I think it was like it wasn't even the fact that obviously some people class an eating disorder, and especially bulimia, as like a slow suicide. But obviously talking to people that have been through it, like myself, none of them really set out that it's not the end goal. Because you, not to sound like morbid, but it'd be a very like you'd have to really, really hate yourself for it to do that over. Well, I had it for 8.5 years. Obviously there's some people that I was in when I did go into an eating disorder unit, and I think I was in there with 10 other girls, and I know of 6 that are no longer here. And again, that was through heart failure, every single one of them. But I think it was just this, it strips away everything, the bulimia and the secretive nature of what you do, because you do feel shame and you lie to yourself and you lie to other people. It stops you having relationships with anyone. See, I'd already lost contact with my friends. I had a very strained relationship with my parents. Obviously, I was still living at home, but for the people that obviously are listening now, like my routine used to be that I basically had anorexia during the day. I wouldn't eat. I'd wait for my parents to go to bed about 10, half 10, and I would have my binges planned. They were in the boot of my car, and I'd climb out my dining room window, get all the food out in the boot of my car, which I'd left unlocked, and I would sit in the living room with all this food from like half 10 at night till about 6 in the morning until my dad got up. That was my cycle for about 7.5 years. So in terms of like the not caring, it was just that I was so accustomed to my routine, and to me, I did it for so long that it was normal. Like anyone that challenged me on it, it was like, I'm not. This is normal. And I guess it's like you do something for long enough, and there's no one challenges you on it, and you don't see it upon yourself, and you just carry on with it. It becomes normal, and that's where it's clear that having an eating disorder is a mental illness, because it shifts your mind, it shifts your mindset, it shifts your thought patterns to, like, anyone outside would think you are absolutely crazy, like you should be locked up. Obviously, I was close to, I was either told to go to an eating disorder unit, voluntary, or I was going to be like sectioned under the Mental Health Act. So it was like, all right, I'll go then. And I think that was the catalyst to my recovery. Being in an eating disorder unit, I was only in there for 6 months. It's quite a long time, I guess. But it was someone had taken the control away from me. Obviously, the control aspect of what I did. I wouldn't let anybody in. I wouldn't talk to anyone, and it would be my routine. And no one was around when I did my binges, because, again, probably subconsciously I knew what I was doing was wrong. And it was like, yeah, I basically learned how to eat again. I had a normal eating routine. You say normal when you've got an eating disorder and then you're given food, and then you've got about 6 nurses watching you eat the food, and then you can't leave the table for an hour. It's kind of like yeah, I don't think, it may not be done like that today, probably not, but it's what I needed. It was a blessing in disguise. Someone had taken that control away from me, and I think I think because I was eating food and it was little and often, it kind of kick-started my brain, and I kind of saw myself for how everybody else saw me. But then that led to even more crap in my head. That led to the anxiety, social anxiety. I was never diagnosed with depression, but it probably went hand in hand with my eating disorder. But like the anxiety of like being so ill, I looked ill. Like some of my parents' friends thought I had cancer. They thought I had like terminal cancer. My parents didn't talk about, because I was still, all you could see was bones, and it was just like how gaunt I was, and just pale, anemic. And I saw myself for how I was, and it was like this. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see anyone. Couldn't talk to anyone. Had no confidence. Had no self-esteem. Just wanted to shy away from everyone. And then what's your only comfort when you're used to having an eating disorder and binging, and you're so detached from reality that you don't want to be seen by anyone, so you go back to your comfort. And my comfort was the binging and then making myself sick. So it was like breaking that cycle, like obviously still to this day, was the hardest thing I think I've ever done, and I think probably will be the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Reprogramming your brain and changing the routines that are hardwired within you that you've done for so long. It's so hard. It was so hard to do. But if you can do it, and you can change you can rewire it or change the brain to do a routine in a different way, or cope with things in a different way, like you end up becoming, I class myself, it's like reborn. I was basically reborn again at 27. So I'm like, what am I, 8 years into my recovery now? and it really was fitness. Fitness was the biggest thing for me, in order to teach me the value in myself. And obviously, I know not everyone. Obviously, fitness is important just for general health. Obviously, I know people are wired differently. There's obviously a lot of people that I work with that are far more creative. So they're like art. They do art and art classes and drawings, and they'll make things or they'll sing. And obviously, you have to find the thing. You have to find the thing, and obviously, like people can give you the tools to do that. And obviously, having one-to-ones and talking to people, you can almost they can pick up how you're wired, what you're interested in. And if you can focus on the things that like your hobbies that could become crucial to implement into like your coping strategies and coping mechanisms. So it was the gym. Okay, I think because of my sporting background and football as a kid, getting into the gym was the thing that probably saved my life. And it's obviously led me to what I do now.
I think that's a really important thing to recognize. Is a big part of your recovery is finding a reason to live, ultimately finding passions, finding a purpose, finding something that's a positive outlet that you can put all that attention and focus on, versus the negative thing you were putting all your attention and focus on. I know that this might be a difficult question to answer, but just hearing you then say about how 6 of the people you was with are no longer with us, you know, it's just heartbreaking to hear that. And I think it took you the best part of 10 years to start your proper journey of recovery. And if it hadn't have happened then, who knows, you could have been the 7th, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
With that in mind, what do you think could have helped you recover much sooner, so that rather than this going on for 10 years, rather than it going on for some of those girls and so on that ended up getting to that point, and when you think of the mindset you was in and the attitude you had, you know, a year or 2 into it, how could somebody have helped you then at that stage?
That's a difficult one, because like my parents at the time took the good cop, bad cop approach. My dad was like, whatever help you need, I'll give it to you. Whereas my mum was like, I still remember the phrase, she's like, I love you because you're my son, but I hate who you've become. I think, I don't know, it's difficult because like I'd say now that would it be better that I was challenged earlier, that I wasn't, that my parents knew what I was doing, but they didn't know what to do, how to treat it. So they almost, when I say turn a blind eye, I think they probably did, because like in everyday life, they were trying to search for a service. They were trying to search for specialist care, because they couldn't deal with it themselves. But then obviously then you flip that, and it's almost like if they put too much pressure on me and I felt too caged or too watched, would I have left? I don't know. I would have had nowhere to go, but I don't know. Would it have caused me to run away? And that could have accelerated things. So it's so
hard to know what to do, isn't it? I do think like more awareness like this, like hearing from people that have come through the other end, and you know, I think probably now to what it was then, this is a conversation that's had more. And like for me, I know it's spoken about a lot that, you know, statistically it's more common in females, but I actually think, I'm not sure how true those statistics are. I think there's just a lot of guys won't admit to eating disorders because it's not a manly thing to do, to starve themselves and things like that. And I think more people like you saying that this is what happened is probably needed, right?
I think so. I think obviously when you look at the stats, and obviously the whole 10 years with my eating disorder, like in and out of doctors and therapies and eating disorder units, and like Beat meetings. Obviously Beat are one of the biggest eating disorder charities in the UK. Throughout my whole 10 years, I never interacted with another guy. And one of the worst things, and I'm not dissing on therapists. Obviously, in terms of therapy is a very person dependent thing. I 100% get that. Therapy didn't work for me. Just, I don't know whether I wasn't the right therapist. I don't know. But one of the therapists said, it's a bit odd for a guy to have an eating disorder. I've never known a guy to have it. And you think, like, he may have just said it flippantly in a comment, and that literally was like, what? Why me then? And you think, like, what did I do when I got home? straight out of binge. Like,
Yeah,
why
because
me? And
you go to the therapist hoping that that's the person that can help, and when
yeah,
they're a bit stumped, like, oh, this is, you go, well, what the fuck do I do now? Like,
exactly. And the worst thing was I hadn't even realized up until that point. I may have been like 4 or 5 years into my eating disorder. I'd never ever again, because I was just tunnel vision doing my own shit, wasn't thinking about anybody else. Then when someone says that, it was like, oh, actually, yeah, he's right. Like, why have I got something that is deemed a woman's illness? And that's literally how it was phrased everywhere. Like I wasn't the eating disorder unit I was in. I couldn't be an inpatient. I had to be a day patient because all the other girls there, or everyone else there, was a girl, and obviously you couldn't have mixed sex on the ward. So I had to be there at like 7 in the morning, and I'd stay until 8 at night, but I couldn't stay there overnight. And again, that was like I was always like it's like the outsider. It was like, obviously it was weird because it was like I was the outsider in that group. I was the black sheep in the family. Obviously, like my friends, like obviously I don't blame any of my friends for, like, when you've got like a set of mates, it's like, oh, you coming out this weekend? No, mate, I'm not. Are you coming out this weekend? No, mate, I'm not. Are you coming out this weekend? And then I don't reply, and then I message you, and then I don't reply. It's like they naturally just, oh, he's not interested. Like they didn't know what was going on, and it's only been since like sharing my story that obviously they've reached out on social media. It was like, mate, we all spoke about you, but we had no idea what was going on. And I guess it is like, I think that's the reason why I'm trying to do what I do now. And I think it always takes. I don't think I'm special in what I do. I think I'm lucky. I think I'm lucky in the fact that I'm a survivor, because when you look at you see the facts on obviously what like Hope Virgo, who's like, she's basically the spokeswoman for eating disorders in the UK. Obviously, she always puts out like facts on her Instagram, and it was like some of the ones it has me in tears, because it's just like, Jesus Christ, like I was, it's like one in four that have it for over a certain period of time will die. And it's like, you do the math, it's like, well, actually that's true, because obviously based on the people that I've interacted with, it's like it could have been me. Like, it could have been me. So it's like I'm almost like I'm here. I was able to recover for a reason, and I'd almost feel like I want to be that I didn't have anyone to look up to when I was going through it. And whether that would have, you going back to your earlier question, maybe, I get, it's if buts and maybes, you never know. But if there was someone that had been through it that my parents could have reached out to or put in front of me, and was almost like, yeah, mate, you're in a bad position a minute, but it gets better.
Yeah, that's
Like,
what you need sometimes, isn't it? Just that hope, that reassurance. Like, first and foremost, that you're not an alien, that other people, other guys are going through this. And I feel compelled to just kind of say, if there is guys listening to this, and girls, of course, that from my experience, this is common. And I think it's only getting more and more common when you've got things like social media and these unrealistic expectations of what a body should look like. And then you're turning on reality TV shows where, again, everybody looks a certain way. For those who know a bit of my story, know I did a bodybuilding competition a few years ago, and pretty much all the guys I spoke to had some form of an eating disorder. All the guys were taking steroids. All of them were obsessed with how they look and control and, what they needed to do. I myself, there's obviously different levels to eating disorders and disordered eating kind of patterns. But I myself, when I was 17, had bouts of bulimia on and off for months. It then came back when I was doing the bodybuilding competition. And the reason I'm saying that now is because I do think it's quite a lot more common than we think. And I don't want other people listening to this to think that they are that alien. Like, there is many, many stories of people that have had, whether it be to the extreme ends of what you went through, James, or maybe more minor kind of experiences with it like me. But there is people that can help you through it. Reach out to James, speak to him, and I want to talk a bit about that, James, like what you're doing now as a result of your experiences. Obviously, a big thing is helping people with their physical health, with their mental health. So let's dive into a bit of this, and hopefully we can help some people. One of the things I want to talk about is anxiety. I've been hearing it quite a lot just recently. A lot of people struggling with anxiety, struggling with overwhelm. If somebody right now is in that position, and, you know, based on how you maybe work with clients and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
what's kind of your advice to help them overcome that anxiety and be able to move forward when they are feeling that way?
I think obviously, firstly about the anxiety, I think that it wasn't really something. Obviously, I know I suffered with it during my eating disorder, but it wasn't really something that is mainstream, and I think it's only really become a thing post lockdown.
Mm.
I think people were so used to, if they felt like crap or they felt bad, they'd meet up with their mates, they'd go out to the pub, they'd go wherever. And I think for that almost 2 year period, they couldn't do it, and it was almost like a sink or swim situation. You either dealt with it or you didn't. And obviously a lot of people didn't. And then when you were allowed to go out, you can't go out now. You can go out back to work, and it was like I can't. Like, and I think for the first time, people that may have suffered with it, like you said, you got the difference between eating disorders and disordered eating. There's like, obviously there's severe levels of anxiety, and there's obviously maybe it's just like, whether it's just social anxiety or just like little bits of where you feel a little bit, I don't want to be in this situation. I think that became rife after lockdown. So I think it's obviously in my job, I think it's the well, I don't like to use the word consultation call, because that's very like doctor's approach. I basically say, can we schedule a chat? Like, let's have a chat. So it's usually when you have a chat and you try and identify like where they're at in life, and obviously what is their anxiety, where is it built up most? Like, what is it? Is it every day, or is it when you're going to a certain place? And obviously, if you the more you can identify and like drill down into the like semantics of it all, then you can almost like relay the information back to them, and with tips to be able to to deal with it. And again, there's a multitude of things that you can use in regards to like the coping mechanisms, because obviously if you know, again, work thing, a lot of people work from home now, but they have to go into the office a couple of times a month. And it's almost like they know that on that day they've got to go to the office. So like even the day before, there's the whole build up of shit. I've got to go on the train. I've got to see people. I've got to be around people. I've got to see people in the office that I don't like, but I need to be there. And it's like it sounds horrible to people, but it's like you have to deal with it either way. You have to go into work, otherwise you're going to lose your job. So it's like, what are you going to put in place to be able to deal with a day? So obviously a lot of it, and again, it's how people are wired. You can use the fitness thing as a way of some form of like escapism. And obviously if you're creative, listening to music, I think that is probably one of my biggest things. Listening to music, listening to podcasts. And it's like, although obviously when you're on public transport, you need to be aware of what's around you, but to have that escapism to almost get you through the day, and it's kind of like you're not focusing on the build up of getting into work because you're distracted by music or a podcast. And obviously whatever you listen to, if it's music or if it is podcast, your growth mindset, listening, learning, like progressing in whatever way. And I think it's doing things as I don't like to use a distraction, but it's the easiest way to explain it, because it's almost like distracting, are you really dealing with it? But then like you are, because you're still doing what you're doing, you're just not sitting with them feelings for
completely.
however long.
Just to jump in on that, a lot of the time all anxiety is focusing on the worst case scenario. Like you said, oh my God, I've got to go to work, I'm scared what people think of me, or blah blah. So all you're actually trying to get them to do is shift that focus to something more positive, right? So I think that's the key takeaways that James is sort of saying there. I think one is highlighting and recognizing what are the triggers for that anxiety, like what's causing the anxiety, and maybe delving a bit deeper into why am I anxious about that, and get a bit more clarity on it. Because a lot of people just go, oh my God, I feel anxious. And they also, something else I notice people do is they call it my anxiety. So it's like, it's something they own. And right. And again, it's like, well, if it's yours, you're going to keep it, aren't you? Versus just saying, I'm feeling anxious. It's a perfectly normal human emotion that we all feel from time to time. Let me explore this. Why am I feeling it? Where does it come from? Having a bit more understanding, embracing it. And then what you'll recognize a lot of the time is, oh, I'm focusing all the shit going wrong. And the worst case scenario, now I'm going to shift that focus. I can shift it to the best case scenario, or I can shift it to, this is my favorite piece of music. I'm going to enjoy this, or I'm going to listen to a podcast, like you said, growth mindset. So I think that's some really good advice that I hope people, if that has been something recently, come back to these fundamentals, shift that focus, change your physiology is something we speak about a lot. Often, if you feel anxious, your body language is going to look like an anxious person. Change it. Change your physiology, shift your focus, stop focusing on the negatives. And I know a lot of this is easier said than done, right? Which is why there's nuance to everything we're saying. But if we break it down and give you simplistic things, these are some of the fundamental basics. What about with regards to helping people when it comes to achieving goals? A lot of people know or find out what they want in life and they go, I want to get a six pack, I want to get fitter and healthier, or I want to earn more money, change my career, build a business, whatever those goals might be. And then the reality of life hits and they might feel anxious and they might struggle with overwhelm and all these things happen. And what they find is January comes around every year and they're setting the same goal that they set the previous year. And maybe they made some progress, but then they regressed a bit and they go through these yo-yo cycles. What's your main advice to somebody if somebody comes with you and they've got a goal and they want to finally crack the code to being consistent and consistently overall be making progress? Obviously, they might not be perfect, but generally there's progress being made year on year. How would you help someone with that?
First of all, I don't know if it's like you, but I hate New Year's resolutions. When you see people just spouting crap on their Instagram or on social media about, oh, new year, new me, it's like, well, why has it got to be New Year? Why can't you put a plan of action in now? And then it was like, well, because it's like, got to get Christmas over the way. It's like, all right, so you're going to eat like a dick over Christmas and then you're going to start being healthy. It's not going to happen. So I think first of all, do not make it timed. Do not do like, I'm going to start next week. I'm going to start on the 1st of January, because I think again it's like, it's not to me, I don't like it. To me, if you're going to make a change now. Make a change now. And I think that again, to start, it's starting small, and it's about, people have these unrealistic goals when they set out. You look at list, if you have a list of the most common New Year's resolutions, it's to lose X amount of stone, and it's like, right, okay. And then you drum down into who they are. It's like, all right, you want to put on, you want to lose 5 stone. Okay, so what have you done like previously? What do you mean? Well, have you dieted before? No. When was the last time you exercised? Oof, like 20 years ago. You think you're going to lose 5 stone when you haven't exercised in 20 years? You have no control over your diet. It's like, why don't we just say that we're going to start going for a walk for 20 minutes a day? Well, that's not weight related. It's like, yeah, it is. Like, just focus on getting them 20 minutes in a day if you've not exercised for X amount of years. So it's about you're scaling down their results in their head to make it a short-term thing. So basically you're having that's the end goal. And if you achieve that, fucking brilliant. But let's just be realistic in what you're currently doing. And I'm sure it's obviously, you want to make it's smart, the smart objectives. So it's got to be specific. So losing 5 stone, you could lose a leg, that's 5 stone. Like, you be specific with it. So it's obviously about have these ideas in your head of what you want it to be, and then define it. Obviously measurable. So you do want to make it like, you want to be able to track your success. Obviously achievable. Again, you want to make sure that it is actually something you can realistically do. Otherwise, like 99% of people that set a New Year's resolution, if you set an unrealistic goal, you're never going to achieve it, and then you're just going to feel like shit. You're going to feel like a failure. But that's pretty much what it is. So yeah, it has to be realistic and then timed. So you want to make sure that, depending on what it is, the time thing, it'd be broken down into short, medium, long-term goals. And that's what I do with any client that I've worked with, whether it be the PT side of things or the mental health side of things. The long-term, that's your end goal, but you want to celebrate the wins up to that point. So you give yourself like weekly task or a daily task to do. And then at the end of the week, if you, of them 7 days, if you you've ticked like 4 good days out of 3 days, you've won the week. Tick. And then and you want to make sure that you win more weeks than months. And if you're ahead of that, again, another tick, give yourself a treat. And it's like, you end up building these small wins that increase your confidence, increase your motivation. you're going to feel better in yourself anyway, because if it's a health related thing and you're winning the weeks and winning the months, you're going to start feeling better. You're going to have more energy levels. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be more focused. You're going to be more determined to hit that long-term goal. And by the time you reach that point where you're like, actually, I feel really good. It's like you're 8 months into the year and you've almost lost, like, okay, you've lost 3 stone. You don't even know you've lost the 3 stone because all you've done is focus on them small little wins.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. And again, that's relatable to not just weight. That can be relatable to work, to get yourself up the career ladder, to get a promotion, to set up your own business, whatever it is. That is to me, that's the key for everything. It's breaking it down into small chunks and celebrating the wins along the way.
Completely agree. And I would say to everybody listening to this now, stop and think, am I overwhelming myself trying to do too much too quickly? And if so, where do I need to adjust? Because it is so common, right? That people do it, and it's ludicrous when you think about it. They go from being in denial and like just being like, I don't even want to look at myself in the mirror, or whatever the goal is, I just want to avoid it, to suddenly getting that point of so much discomfort. They're like, I need it all to change, and I need it to change now, right? Which is just ludicrous. And what I would sort of add on to what James is saying is, it's about having patience with the process. Nothing happens overnight. And it's about focusing on, there's a phrase that I coined on a course that I know some of you did, the Bulletproof Actor course that I did, which is about focusing on output, not outcome, right? And what I mean by that is, yes, know the outcome you want, like what that goal is, right? What do we want to achieve? Once you know the direction, just purely focus on daily. What's the output? What are the daily habits? What's the effort? What's the things that I need to do that compounded over time are going to get me there? And what's added to that is focusing on your identity, right? Rather than focusing on, I need to achieve this outcome, you focus on daily being a person who is conscious of their health, that eats good foods, that focuses on getting the steps in, as James is saying, and going to the gym, and focus more on the identity and the daily work. The outcome, as you said there, James, it's going to take care of itself. And it's not even going to be that big deal. Why? Because it's just who you are now. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest shift that you've got to make, is the shift in who I am, what I value day to day, not having this lack of patience that I'll be happy when I achieve that weight loss. I'll be happy when I achieve that money. That's setting yourself up for failure. You're putting all your happiness on a destination. You're going to get pissed off when it doesn't come quick enough. You're going to quit. You're going to go the opposite way. So I think that's some really, really valuable advice. Small, simple steps. Focus on the small wins along the way, and focus on the identity. Focus on the process. James, I'm gutted because this has just flown by. I can't.
Yeah, hasn't it?
I can't even, I feel like we're just now starting, but I want to leave some time for the Q&A because I'm sure people have got questions for you. So just before we kind of wrap up the main podcast and head over to those questions, if people have listened to this tonight and they feel like I do, which is they've only just scratched the surface in the value you can give people want to find out more about you, follow you online, maybe get involved in some of the stuff you do, what's the best things to direct people to?
The easiest one at the minute, because my old website is being changed to my new, better website. The easiest one is to get me on Instagram, and obviously it's obviously my name on here, like James the Mental Health PT. If you type that in on Instagram, you should be able to see me. So yeah, that'd be the easiest way to follow my content, and obviously even reach out to me in the DMs.
James, this has been brilliant. This has been so powerful hearing your story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for the work that you do, mate, as well. I know you've been jumping on a lot of podcasts and you're doing a lot to create a lot of awareness. And yeah, I'm behind you all the way, man. Anything I can do to help, please just reach out, because it's amazing to see what you're doing. Okay, James, final question before we head over to the members. What is your definition of success?
I think, to me, the definition of success is about fulfilling your potential. I think, if whatever you set out in life to do, to try and be the best version of you, or that thing that you can be. So if you have whatever your job is, to try and be the best person at it that you can be, not that there ever was, but that you can be. If you know, like, hand on your heart, if you do everything right, and you turn up every day, and you act with integrity and honesty, and you do things that that are the best for you, I think, and you end up becoming happy. I think you become happy with who you are, what you do. And I think to me that's success. I think if you can look in the mirror and go, yeah, I'm proud of what I do, or I'm proud of myself for how I conduct myself. I think to me that's success. It's not a monetary thing. I think money will come with situations. Money comes with the success you are within yourself and within your work and within your relationship. So yeah, I don't think anyone that puts money as a success, I don't think that's the real true measure of it.
James, thank you so much, mate. Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to bang on about everything that's inside the membership, and that's true. I didn't lie to you. I'm not going to tell you everything because it's free to join. Go over there, find out for yourself. But one thing I do want to make sure you're aware of is pretty much almost every guest that you listen to on this podcast also agrees to do a further around about 30 minutes worth of the chat that is only available to the members only. Because what we do is we invite our members to listen to a lot of these podcasts being recorded live. And then once we've finished, they stay on the live on Zoom where they can actually ask questions to the guest speaker and get more personalized, bespoke answers. Now, if you want to be on the upcoming episodes, if you want to meet these guests and put your question to them, and if you also want to right now start to listen to all the past few years worth of these conversations, head on over to the link in the show notes, start your free trial today, and just to let you know as well, it's less than £5 a week after your free trial ends. So it's not going to cost you a lot of money, even if you want to stay long term. Click that link, start your trial, go listen to the content, get your invite to come and join us on all future podcast recordings, and I look forward to seeing you in our amazing, incredible community of people in the membership area. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode today, and I'll see you next time.